Hey everyone, my name is Chris Anderson and I'm in Everglades National Park. This park protects 1.5 million acres of ponds, streams, forests, estuaries, and sawgrass prairies. It's the third largest park in the contiguous United States, and it's the largest tropical wilderness in the country. All right, but I gotta ask, why is it so wet? Why is there so much water here? Where did it come from? Put on your waders and look out for the gators. We're gonna learn about the water cycle today on OutSCIder Classroom. Welcome to the world's widest river. It's a common misconception that the Everglades are a swamp. They are not a swamp. Swamps are forests that flood. What we have here is a slough. A slough is a really wide, really slow moving river. See how the water here is clear and not dark? That's because it's flowing and not stagnant. Stagnant water would be darker because dead leaves and other detritus material would kind of accumulate. This slough is also super wide, 50 miles across in some places. So it's understandable to think that this is a swamp because the water extends for miles in every direction. So where does all that water come from? The Everglades receives a lot of rain, around 60 inches a year. That's nearly double what Seattle receives. Scientists call any water that falls from the sky to the surface precipitation. Rain, snow, sleet, hail are all forms of precipitation. But it doesn't just rain in the Everglades, it rains all over South Florida. And the topography here is very flat, so when the streams and lakes and rivers overflow, they spill into the Everglades. Scientists call this runoff, when excess rain or melt or storm water flows across the surface to larger bodies of water. It's pretty simple math. The Everglades receives more water than it can effectively drain. That water's got to go somewhere, so a wetland is formed. Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching. Now, wait a minute. Why does the Everglades receive so much water in the first place? And what happens to the water once it drains out to the Gulf? Matter of fact, there's a lot of questions we haven't answered yet. To learn about these questions and more about the water cycle is my friend and hydrologist, Dr. Raha Hakimdavar.
I'm Dr. Raha Hakimdavar. I'm a hydrologist and I teach water and climate science at Georgetown University. So water makes it into the atmosphere in two different ways. One is through evaporation and the other is through transpiration. So evaporation is really water getting evaporated into the atmosphere through solar radiation, and that can happen through any kind of wet surface. So either concrete, to soils, to open bodies of water, and even the ocean. And transpiration is this really cool process where plants, vegetation, and trees have their roots deep in the ground, and they're able to tap into the groundwater and actually pull water up through their root system and then transpire it into the atmosphere as water vapor. So that's how we get this combination of evapotranspiration. So the water makes it into the superhighway in the sky, which is our atmosphere, and then it turns into clouds. And through some really cool processes, we have condensation happen, and then that in turn turns into precipitation. So if you think of it, the more water that's able to get evaporated or evapotranspired into the atmosphere, then the more water that you have available that can turn into precipitation. So really it comes down to condensation, it comes down to how much vegetation you have and the part of the world where you are located.
There's another important part of the water cycle. Not all water flows across the surface, a lot of it flows underneath it. Scientists have cleverly named water that moves underground groundwater. Around 30% of all fresh water on planet Earth is groundwater, and it pools in what amounts to underground lakes. These subterranean reservoirs are called aquifers, and there's a big one here in South Florida. Why? Well, it's all about the bedrock. Not the Flintstones' hometown, mind you. I'm talking about the solid layer of rock beneath the soil. The bedrock here is limestone. It formed around 150,000 years ago when this whole area was underwater and home to a thriving coral reef. Scientists use the term permeability to describe how easily rock allows water to pass through it. And the limestone is super permeable. All those tiny little holes and cracks allow for water to seep through into the aquifer. And the aquifer is ginormous because the limestone is super permeable and all the rain this area gets. It's around 4,000 square miles in area, and up to 7,000 gallons a minute is pumped out of it to quench the thirsts of all the people and farms here. Man, that's a lot of water. Aquifers have been an important source of water for millennia. But as climate patterns change and demand for fresh water for drinking and irrigation increases, we're putting more pressure than ever on our aquifers. To learn more, let's kick it back to Raha.
So as our demand for water resources has increased, especially in places where you have water scarcity, as our populations have grown and we've experienced climate change, the demand for groundwater has really exponentially increased. So what that means is that we're actually tapping into our groundwater resources and pumping water out to be used for different uses like agriculture, water consumption, and even for industrial purposes. And what that's done is that it's depleting our groundwater resources and depleting our aquifers.
The Everglades is an amazing park. It's the only place on Earth where the natural habitat of the American crocodile and the American alligator overlap. You can hike, bike, and kayak all in the same great park. There's even overnight trips you can take to the backcountry where you paddle from campsite to campsite. These trips take a lot of extra planning, and you have to be really good with a compass and a map, but the extra effort is worth being in that kind of wilderness. When you do visit the Everglades, make sure you protect against the sun and the skeeters. The former can burn and dehydrate you, and the latter can be super annoying and give you bites and carry diseases. Wear pants, long sleeve shirts, sunglasses, bring lots of water, and generously apply sunscreen and bug spray. And of course, it's important to be aware of the aforementioned alligators and crocodiles. Bites from these animals are rare, although they do occasionally happen. It's almost always when somebody got too close. Give them their space, 15 feet at minimum. And whatever you do, don't try to pet or feed an alligator or a crocodile. First of all, it's illegal. All wildlife in the Everglades is protected. Secondly, they're wild animals, not pets. If they feel threatened, they'll defend themselves. Plus, how would you like it if some random Randy started throwing food at you? Would you appreciate that? I don't think so. So don't do it to an alligator or a crocodile. Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching. Now, if you'll excuse me, the hydraulic conductivity of this aquifer isn't going to measure itself. We'll see you next time on OutSCIder Classroom. Want to learn more about our national parks? Then hit that subscribe button, friend. Stay up to date and catch bonus features by following us on Instagram @OutSCIder.